When a beloved school cook is fired without warning, no one expects the chain reaction that follows. From protests to a billionaire's intervention, this story uncovers hidden truths and ignites a revolution. Why did Mr. Collins really fire Ms. Miranda? And how far will the students go to fight back? The aroma of warm cinnamon rolls floated through the halls of Pinecrest High like it did every morning. For over 2 decades, Ms. Miranda had been the soul of the school's cafeteria, her apron always stained with sauces, her laugh echoing through the lunch line, and her heart wide open to every student who crossed her path. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, handing Thomas Hudson his usual, 2 scrambled eggs and a slice of her homemade banana bread. "You're the best, Ms. Miranda," he grinned. "Don't ever retire, all right?" She winked. "Not until you graduate, at least." But that morning, the smile she offered was thinner than usual. There was something off. Her eyes lingered on the office door across the cafeteria, where Principal Alfred Collins stood stiffly, arms crossed, speaking in hushed tones with a man in a gray suit. By lunch, everything had changed. A sharp announcement cut through the school speakers. "Attention students and staff. Please be informed that effective immediately, Ms. Miranda Benson will no longer be serving as our cafeteria coordinator. We thank her for her years of service." Gasps echoed across the cafeteria. Trays clattered. Thomas froze mid-bite. Emma Barton, sitting across from him, stood up so fast her chair screeched. "What? No, that can't be real," she shouted. Students began rising from their seats, a mix of confusion and outrage brewing in the air. Thomas bolted from the table and rushed toward the kitchen, only to find the doors locked. He banged on them, calling her name. "Ms. Miranda? It's me. It's Thomas. What happened?" No answer, only the echo of his fists on the steel. Emma arrived seconds later, out of breath. She wouldn't leave like this, not without saying goodbye. Something's wrong. The next day, everything felt colder. The cafeteria served bland, reheated meals from plastic packaging. The warmth was gone. The laughter gone. Ms. Miranda gone. That's when it happened. At exactly 9:04 a.m., the sound of tires crunching against the gravel echoed louder than any bell. A sleek black limousine pulled into the school parking lot, polished to a mirror shine, its windows tinted jet black. Every student turned to look. Teachers peeked from behind classroom blinds. Even Principal Collins stepped outside, adjusting his tie nervously. The back door of the limousine opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, dressed in an elegant navy blue suit with sharp shoulders and Italian leather shoes. His hair was silver at the temples, and his presence commanded silence. He didn't speak right away, he just looked around, eyes scanning every face. Then he said, in a calm but firm voice, "I'm looking for Ms. Miranda Benson." The name dropped like a thunderclap. Principal Collins quickly stepped forward, forcing a polite smile. "I'm afraid she no longer works here. May I ask who's inquiring?" The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "Barry Charleston." A whisper ran through the crowd like wind in tall grass. Barry Charleston? The billionaire? The tech tycoon? Thomas's heart skipped a beat. He had read about Charleston in an article just last week. One of the richest men in the country, a rags-to-riches icon. Charleston turned his gaze from Collins and looked directly at the group of students gathering nearby. His expression softened slightly when he spotted Thomas. You look like someone who knows her," he said. Thomas hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, she's like family." Charleston took a step closer. "Do you know where I can find her?" Collins interjected quickly. "I assure you, she's no longer affiliated with the school. If this is about a donation, perhaps we could arrange a meeting." "I didn't ask you," Charleston said, his voice flat and final. He looked back at Thomas. "Will you take me to her?" Thomas glanced at Emma, who gave a barely perceptible nod. He looked at Collins, whose face had turned a faint shade of red, and then back at Charleston. "I will," he said. "Let me grab my things." Charleston opened the limo door. "There's space inside." Without another word, Thomas climbed into the car. As the limousine pulled away, the students buzzed like a stirred hive. Emma took a step forward to follow, But Collins blocked her path with a forced smile. "Let's not get involved in things we don't understand, Ms. Barton." Emma stared at him, her fists clenched. She saw the nervous twitch in his jaw, the way he wouldn't meet her eyes. Something wasn't right. And whatever it was, it had just driven off in a black limousine, headed straight toward Ms. Miranda. The interior of the limousine was silent except for the soft hum of the engine and the ticking of the analog clock built into the dashboard. Thomas sat across from Barry Charleston, eyes darting between the luxurious interior and the man beside him. Leather seats, polished wood trim, the faint scent of cologne. It all felt surreal. But nothing was more surreal than sitting next to the Barry Charleston. "I still remember the first time she handed me a sandwich," Barry said suddenly, staring out the window. "I was 13, didn't have a dime, didn't have breakfast. She took one look at me and said, 'You can't learn with an empty stomach.' Just handed it to me. No judgment." Thomas swallowed. "She's done that for so many of us. There are kids who only eat because of her." Barry nodded slowly. "Back then, she didn't know who I was. Nobody did. I was just another hungry kid trying to keep quiet about it. But she saw me, and somehow, that changed everything." The limousine turned off the main road and onto a smaller street lined with old trees. Thomas leaned forward, pointing. "That's her house. White one with the porch swing." The driver slowed to a stop in front of a modest, weather-worn home. A small ceramic rooster sat on the windowsill. The lawn was neat, though the paint on the fence was peeling. Barry stepped out first, straightening his jacket. Thomas hesitated. "Should I wait out here?" Barry glanced back. "No, you're part of this now." Thomas followed. They knocked twice. A few seconds passed before the door creaked open. Ms. Miranda appeared in a faded pink sweater, her gray curls pulled into a loose bun. She froze when she saw who stood on her porch. Her lips parted. "Barry." A rare smile broke across his face. "It's been a long time, Ms. Miranda." Without hesitation, she opened the door wider. "Come in, both of you." Inside, the scent of apple pie filled the air. The furniture was simple and clean, with crocheted blankets draped over the couch. Family photos lined the walls, none of them recent. Ms. Miranda led them to the small kitchen table, poured them tea without asking, then sat across from them, folding her hands. "I saw your face on the news last month. I almost didn't recognize you." Barry chuckled. "That's how I felt when I saw your picture on the school's website. I came back to Pinecrest on business, and when I stopped by the school to surprise you," he paused, "they said you were gone." Her eyes clouded, and she looked down. "After all these years, they didn't even give me a week's notice." Thomas leaned in. "Ms. Miranda, we know there's more to it. You were always the heart of that cafeteria. Why would they just throw you out?" She looked at both of them, sighed, then took a sip of her tea. "I didn't plan on saying anything, but if Barry's here, maybe it's time someone knew the truth." She leaned back in her chair, voice steady but tired. "Collins, he's not just cutting corners. He's hurting that school. He started sending in expired food deliveries, telling me to make it stretch. Some of it had mold. I refused to serve it. He said I was being difficult. The next week, I was out." Thomas clenched his fists. "That's disgusting." "There's more," she continued. "The food supplier changed out of nowhere. I asked questions, got no answers, but I started noticing things, inventory disappearing, purchase orders with inflated prices. I'm no accountant, but it didn't add up." Barry's expression darkened. "You think he's stealing from the school?" "I think he's hiding something, and I think I was too old and too stubborn for his liking. He wanted someone cheap, quiet, and easy to control." Silence fell. Then Ms. Miranda glanced at Thomas. "You know Emma Barton, right?" Thomas nodded. "Of course. She's smart, and she's brave. If we want people to know what's happening, it starts with students." Barry leaned forward, his voice firm. "If you're willing to fight, I'll back you. Financially, publicly, whatever it takes." Ms. Miranda's eyes welled up with tears, but she blinked them away. "I'm not looking for revenge. I want to feed kids. The right way. With dignity. I always dreamed of opening a little diner near the school. Somewhere kids could come after class, get a meal, talk, feel safe. Barry sat back and smiled. Then we're not talking about a little diner. We're talking about Miranda's Kitchen. A place that matters. Thomas's phone buzzed. It was a text from Emma. What's going on? Are you okay? He typed quickly. It's big. Call you in 5. He turned to Ms. Miranda. You should tell Emma. She'll spread the word. People listen to her. Ms. Miranda nodded. Then let's not waste time. As Barry stepped outside to take a phone call, Ms. Miranda turned to Thomas. You know, I never thought I'd see that boy again. And now he's back here, offering to build something beautiful. Thomas smiled. You built something first. He's just returning the favor. From the porch, Barry raised his voice. I own the empty lot next to the school. Cleared it last year for a storage facility. But I think I've got a better use for it now. Back inside, Ms. Miranda sat straighter, her hands trembling slightly. Hope, real, tangible hope, was returning to her eyes. Back at the school, Emma stared at her phone, reading Thomas's message over and over. And in the principal's office, Alfred Collins sat alone, staring at the security camera feed of the limousine pulling away. His hand hovered over a locked drawer in his desk. He knew what Ms. Miranda had seen, and if she talked, everything he'd built could come crashing down. Thomas stood just outside the school gates, phone pressed tightly to his ear, pacing in short, tense strides. Emma, listen, he's not just some rich guy. Barry Charleston. That name ring a bell. There was a pause on the other end and then, wait, the tech billionaire who built that youth startup thing? Yeah, him. And guess what? Ms. Miranda helped him when he was a kid at this school. Gave him food when he had nothing. Now he's back, he's gonna help her open a diner. A real one. Right next to the school. Emma's voice came back, full of breathless awe. You're serious? She told us everything, Em. Collins made her serve expired food. When she refused, he fired her. She suspects he's been stealing from the school too, falsifying purchase orders, cutting deals with shady suppliers. A pause. Then, Emma said, we need to tell everyone. I thought you'd say that, Thomas said, a smile curling at the edge of his mouth. Let's make some noise. By lunch break, Emma had already posted a detailed message on the student forum and snapped a photo of the outside of Ms. Miranda's home with a caption. You may have fired her, but we haven't forgotten her. The post spread fast. Comments flooded in. Students began talking in the hallways, whispers turning into heated debates. By the final bell, a group of students had gathered in the courtyard holding up handmade signs. Bring Miranda back. We deserve real food. What is Collins hiding? Inside his office, Principal Alfred Collins slammed the blinds shut. His face, normally smug and unreadable, was pale with tension. He gripped a stack of folders labeled confidential and paced his office like a cornered animal. The door burst open without knocking. It was Mr. Langford, the history teacher, holding up his phone. Alfred, you've seen this. He thrust the screen forward. A news alert read, Tech billionaire Barry Charleston returns to hometown to fund community project. Under it, a blurry photo of Charleston and Ms. Miranda smiling on her porch. Collins snatched the phone, reading the article in silence. His lips tightened. He's not naming the school yet, Langford added. But if this goes public, I'll handle it, Collins snapped, throwing the phone back. Meanwhile, at the edge of Pinecrest, construction crews in hard hats walked the empty lot next to the school. A tall banner now hung from the chain-link fence. Future home of Miranda's Kitchen opening soon. Ms. Miranda stood beside Barry and Thomas, watching the ground being cleared. Her hand clutched a rolled blueprint, her fingers trembling. I never thought I'd see my name on a building, she whispered. Barry smiled. You earned it. She turned to Thomas. And you've done more than you know. Thomas shrugged. I hate unfairness. You were the best part of that school. Barry's phone buzzed. He stepped away to take the call. Ms. Miranda turned serious. There's something else. Something I've kept quiet about. Thomas tilted his head. What is it? She looked around, then lowered her voice. A few weeks before I was fired, I overheard a call in Collins's office. He didn't know I was there. I was dropping off a delivery receipt. He was yelling at someone about a contract. He said, and I quote, "If the board finds out I've been rerouting funds through the supplier, I'm done." Then he noticed me and slammed the door in my face. Thomas's eyes widened. Do you think he's laundering money? I don't know, but it scared me. I never told anyone. Who would believe the lunch lady? Just then, Barry returned, slipping his phone back into his pocket. That was my lawyer. He's looking into Collins's connections to the new supplier. Says some things don't add up. Ms. Miranda nodded. I knew something was off. Barry glanced toward the school building. It's time people knew what's really going on inside those walls. Back inside the cafeteria, students were refusing lunch trays. Instead, they passed around pre-packed sandwiches and snacks they'd brought from home. Some had written "Justice for Miranda" on the sandwich bags. The school buzzed with quiet rebellion. Emma stood near the center, live streaming. We're not going away. Ms. Miranda fed us when the school didn't care. Now it's our turn to stand up for her. The comments rolled in fast. Where's the school board? This is insane. Fire Collins. Go Emma. We're with you. From the second-floor window, Collins watched with clenched teeth. His phone buzzed again. A message from the school board. We need to talk. Now. His hands shook. He tossed the phone onto his desk and stared at the empty hallway outside. The walls were closing in. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the new building's gleaming white walls. A sign above the front entrance read in bold, cheerful letters, Miranda's Kitchen. Beneath it, in smaller print, food, dignity, community. Ms. Miranda stood at the sidewalk, her hand covering her mouth, holding back tears. The once empty lot was now transformed. A wide glass storefront, bright red chairs under shaded awnings, flower beds lining the walkway. People bustled about inside. Final touches, wiping down counters, checking inventory. She took a step forward, slowly, as if still not believing it was real. Thomas greeted her at the door, grinning wide, wearing an apron with the Miranda's Kitchen logo stitched on the chest. You ready? More than ever, she whispered. Inside, the smell of fresh bread and sizzling eggs filled the air. Staff, some were students, others volunteers from the neighborhood, moved quickly yet with joy. At the far end, Emma set down a tray of colorful lunchboxes on a long table with a hand-painted sign above it. Free meals for kids, no questions asked. Miranda paused at the center of the room, soaking it all in. Barry Charleston walked over, sleeves rolled up, clipboard in hand. It's a soft opening today, he said. Tomorrow we go public. She turned to him, eyes misty. I don't even have words to thank you. You already did, Barry replied, smiling. You changed my life once. This is me returning the favor. Just then, the bell above the front door jingled. A young boy, no older than 9, walked in hesitantly. His shirt was oversized, his sneakers too worn. He looked around nervously. Ms. Miranda knelt down to his eye level. Hi, sweetheart. What's your name? Dion, he said softly. Are you hungry, Dion? He nodded. Well then, she smiled, standing up. Let's fix that. She walked him over to the counter where warm trays of scrambled eggs, toast, and fruit awaited. He took a plate, eyes wide, hands trembling with gratitude. As she watched him eat, she whispered to Barry, this is what it was always about. Outside the school gates across the street, things looked very different. The once indifferent, orderly routine had been replaced by tension. Reporters lingered near the entrance. Parents and students crowded near the bulletin board, reading the freshly posted letter. To the Pinecrest community, an internal investigation has begun regarding recent allegations of misconduct by Principal Alfred Collins. Until further notice, he is on administrative leave. The school board Emma read it aloud to a group of students, who erupted into cheers and hugs. Inside his empty office, Alfred Collins sat alone, the walls stripped bare. The school board had arrived that morning with a formal letter and sharp questions. Now, with his belongings packed in a cardboard box at his feet, he stared out the window at Miranda's kitchen. From his vantage point, he could see people lining up. Kids, families, teachers, and staff, many of whom had once walked past him without a word, were now laughing, smiling, united around something real. He clenched his jaw, then looked away. Back at Miranda's, the day went on. In the late afternoon, a small ceremony took place. A local reporter handed Ms. Miranda a microphone. She stood at the center of the room, surrounded by flashing cameras and familiar faces. "I never asked for any of this," she said, voice steady but emotional. "All I wanted was to make sure no child went hungry. I did that for 25 years at Pinecrest, and when that ended, I thought my time was over. But what I learned is, love doesn't retire. Kindness doesn't expire. And when people come together, when we speak up for what's right, we can create something beautiful." Applause rang out. Thomas and Emma stood side by side, clapping with tears in their eyes. Later, as the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Ms. Miranda sat at a corner table, sipping a cup of tea. The kitchen had quieted down. She looked across the room and saw students helping to clean, community members chatting warmly. Barry walked over, setting down a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. He shrugged. "Just a little something." Inside was a folded note and a deed. It was the ownership papers for Miranda's kitchen, signed and sealed in her name. She looked up at him in disbelief. "Barry, it belongs to you, Miranda. Always has." Her eyes filled with tears. "You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," he said gently. She stood up and pulled him into a hug. It wasn't grand or public. It was quiet and full of meaning. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, the warm light spilled through the large windows of Miranda's kitchen. Inside, the smell of fresh food lingered. Laughter and conversation still echoed. And at the very heart of it all, a woman who had once been discarded stood tall, proud, fulfilled, and surrounded by love. Not just a new beginning for her, but for the entire community. This story reminds us that even small acts of kindness can spark monumental change. Would you stand up for someone like Ms. Miranda? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time to embrace the journey.